What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where you already know we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. Got a brother on today, did a bunch of time, been out a little while, doing the right thing. But anyway, brother, tell the people who you are, where you're from, and let's talk about you.
Hey, what's up, Chad? Name's Rodney Dane. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. Born and raised.
Born and raised in Alexandria, Virginia. How old are you now, brother?
I will be 55 next month.
Boy, you're looking sharp, man. You're looking like you work out every day, brother.
Well, thank you, Chad. I appreciate it.
So let's talk a little bit about, what your life was like growing up in Alexandria, Virginia, man.
Oh man, it was sweet, man. It was late 70s, early 80s. Wasn't a lot of the killing and everything that's going on. There wasn't any of that, man. It was like a carefree life growing up back then. Most you had in the hood was fights every now and then. You might it may go a little further than that, but other than that, nothing major, man.
Hey, I know you end up doing about 17 years in federal prison. You're in Lorton. You've been some places. You've been around some things and seen some things, and it was when it was popping. How'd you end up getting involved in the whole crime world, man?
Started out, man. I probably was about 16 when I first started getting into some trouble, some real trouble, doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing, and it just trickled from there, Chad. So about 11th, 12th grade is probably where it started at. Started getting into selling drugs, and like I said, it was a trickle down effect from there. So 11th, 12th grade is probably when it started.
And you end up catching a bid, right?
Yes, sir.
What's your first bid for?
Well, I've only had one. That was my first one off the porch, man. Like that was the very first bid I ever caught. I had been in a little trouble, but never anything serious. And so then in 1988, I caught that charge. They actually charged me with first-degree murder and carrying a pistol without a license was my original charge. And caught a 15 to life, first charge.
You catch a 15 to life in the state, right?
In the state, yeah. Back then it was state. DC was state, so I caught my charge in DC. It was nothing. They hadn't moved DC over to federal at that point.
So you're in DC. You end up involved in something. Someone gets murdered. What's it over?
It was a drug deal. Well, not a drug deal, but a drug debt that was pretty much owed by my co-defendant. And it really was a situation, Chad, where I had no idea going in what was going on, what happened, what was going on between the two of them. And my whole case was based on a self-defense case. Whereas, back then in the late 80s, self-defense wasn't even on the books in DC. So, to have that type of defense back then, it was hard to get off that kind of charge back then. It was the murder capital of the world back then in 1988, 89.
Are you the person that allegedly pulls the trigger?
Yes, sir.
So, you say it was a drug deal, but I kind of want to know the details. When young dudes are out here, making bad choices, what happens? Are you going over there to cop? I mean, what are you trying to do?
No, we're going over there to retrieve some clothes for my co-defendant who had been living in DC for quite a little bit. And we were going over there to retrieve some clothes for him. And so, of course, we're going to DC. Whenever we would go to DC, we would more often than not, we would pack because we knew what it was going over there. So we would always, have something on us. And so that situation just turned deadly when he got there and the person that he was beefing with showed up. And the situation, like I said, just got deadly. And it became a situation where in my case, it was either his life or mine.
So in your situation, he had a gun on him?
Actually, my co-defendant and I did. And his wasn't on him, but in the vehicle.
So what happens? You guys start
those two were actually beefing. But like I said, I had no idea initially what was going on. He picked me up. He said, "Hey, ride to DC with me. I got to pick my clothes up." While we're there, the guy that he's beefing with shows up.
And how does it escalate to pulling the trigger and taking his life?
Well, according to him, and this is what he told me after the situation, right, Chad? He told me we're both locked up at this time. We're up at DC jail. And he said from the conversation that he had with the decedent that that he felt like it was going to go left. You know, once we got together, got in the vehicle, it was going to go left. He felt like his life was in danger, according to the conversation he had with him prior to us leaving the house.
Are you in the car at the time?
Yes, sir.
You're in the back seat, dude's in the driver's seat?
I'm actually in the front, and he's in the back. The dude is driving.
But you said you're going over there to pick up. You said you're going over there to pick up clothes, but was it a drug deal or was it just getting
No,
clothes?
no, it wasn't no drug deal or none of that. It was none of that drug deal going on. None of that. He simply was going to pick his clothes up. You know, that's what he picked me up and told me, man, hey, I need you to ride with me to DC. I'm going to pick my clothes up. And so while we were there, you know, and again, as you know, Chad, there's a book. I don't want to give, everything about what's in the book, but yeah, I had no clue. There was no intention to go over there and do anything, man. We were simply going to get his clothes when that happened.
How old are you at the time when this happens?
18 going on 19. Now, actually, I was 19, Chad. I had turned 19 when that happened.
What kind of gun was it?
I believe I had a 32. I believe that's what I had in my possession.
It was many years ago. It's hard to remember that, huh?
Yeah, man. We talking 30-something years ago, man. So it's
You're 19 years old. Things go a little bit crazy. You pull the trigger. Where do you hit him at in the head?
That really, some of it came out in trial, but to this day, man, I don't really even know where all of that happened. What happened with all of that, where they hit it and all that. But all of it didn't come out in trial. So,
how many shots were fired by you?
They said 5. I only remember 1, but they said 5. It's probably one of the most graphic situations I've ever been in, honestly.
I'm asking those questions for a reason, right? Because you're 19 years old. You pull the trigger. This dude's dead. Do you jump out of the car immediately and run away? Do you look at him? What's going through your 19-year-old's mind when you pretty much just took this dude's life? And you said it was your life or his. And we see it every day on the street, everywhere. Young kids, man, killing people, man.
Every day, man. And that's what, I'm sure we'll get into it later. I go around and I speak at institutions, juvenile detentions, jails, all of that now is part of what I do now. But in that situation, Chad, it was so unexpected, right? So when it happened, everything went blank. Like when the first shots were fired, which wasn't for me, if you can imagine being inside a vehicle and having that happen, my whole eardrums and everything just went. You couldn't hear anything. Like it was just nothing.
Your co-defendant fires the first shot and you just get nervous probably and just start firing.
Well, yeah, because when I believe it bust my eardrums, man. That's what it felt like. It felt like it bust my eardrums. And so when it happened, I'm like, what the, was that, right? And then when I come to, sort of the eardrum comes back, that's when I hear all the commotion going on. And it's just, rambling, and they're fighting for the pistol, right? And so this is when I'm fearing for my life because he's kind of yelling and everything inside the vehicle, man, is just going crazy, it seems to me.
So they're fighting for the pistol. You pull yours out. That's why you said it could have been life.
That's why my lawyers were saying, hey, this is self-defense, because if he get that gun, which it came out in court that I believe he did have one, but he didn't have a chance to get it because the first shot, came from my co-defense. So that's where my lawyers were saying, hey, man, if he gets that, it's over for the both. You know, so that's where the self-defense part came in at.
So now, after everything's done, dude shot. Do you jump out of the car and run? Do you guys run together? You and your co-defendant? What happens?
We both, yeah, we both run. We get out. We run separate ways, but ended up back together as we run in separate directions. We ended up back together because the whole plan was we were supposed to be going to the subway station to go back to Virginia. That was the whole plan. We were going to get his clothes. We were going to get on the subway and get back because we were getting dropped off there.
So what happens? Do you make it back to Virginia? I mean, how do they arrest you? How do they get you?
Yeah, we make it back. We make it back to Virginia. He knew some people that he was, you know, the people that he were living with ended up telling, you know, the police everything, what happened and all of that. And so what ends up happening is they know who we are. And so of course warrants go out for us. And so they're looking for us. And then eventually, I want to say it was maybe a month goes by and I know that they're looking for me. So they had been to my mom's house and looking for me and everything, and I'm on the run. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and turn myself in. You know, I'm telling a couple of people about what happened, and they're saying, hey man, bro, that's self-defense, bro. You might get off that. You know, and at the time, I'm like, you're probably right. So and my mom and my grandma was instrumental in, you know, me doing the right thing and turning myself in and just trying to, you know, get through the case.
You turn yourself in, you end up in the DC jail, you're from VA. Are there any issues with the DC dudes because you guys just killed a DC dude?
No, it was nothing like that. Like I said, we were always over there, man. There was never ever any type of beefing or anything like that. You really only seen that back then at that time, Chad. You really only seen that from guys, more so guys that were up top, New York, coming down there and, you know, getting in trouble. That was more for them. But like I said, Alexander, where I'm from, is right across the bridge right there, man. There was never any, you know, static in that way.
You're just kind of like you're from VA, but you're pretty much right there in DC anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you end up with a 15 to life. What's it like for a young man to get sentenced to 15 years to life, man? What's going through your mind, man?
Man, Chad, to be honest with you, I couldn't fathom. As when he said it, when the judge said it, I'm looking like, wow, man, what happened? You know, it seems like when you hear it, everything that anyone had ever tried to tell you that was positive, you know, stay out of trouble, your mother, you know, whoever else in your life that was trying to tell you you're doing the wrong thing, all of that plays back in that moment. It was like all coming back to me like, man, such and such tried to tell me, such and such tried to tell me, man, but I didn't listen. And now look, I'm gone for the rest of my life, because you don't hear the 15. All you hear is the life. All you hear is the letters, you know?
And you end up going to Lorton, right, back then?
Yes, back then you went to Lorton after you got your time. You were up to DC jail until you got your time. Once you got your time, you went to Lorton.
How much time was your co-defendant sentenced to?
So we both were charged initially with first-degree murder, right? They came back. He was found guilty of first-degree murder, what they charged him with. He eventually ended up giving that first-degree murder back through ineffective counsel. They came back and found me guilty of second, not the first, because according to my lawyers at that time, who had spoken to a couple of the jurors after the trial, they felt like I wasn't the initiator of what happened. But still, again, they couldn't go with a self-defense, because back then, like I said, that was the murder capital of the world. DC was the murder capital of the country. And so to get a self-defense, you know, under those circumstances, chances are it wasn't going to happen.
How much time did he end up with, the co-defendant, in the end, when it's all said and done?
He ended up, like I said, getting back on ineffective counsel, because pretty much my lawyers fought hard for me. In fact, me and one of my lawyers from back then in '88 is still in contact to this day. You know, and that's how much they believed in in me and what happened with the situation. But he ended up doing, I believe, about maybe 13. And then what they did was, after he got back on ineffective counsel, instead of taking him to trial again, they said, hey, we'll offer you a plea. And so he had already had 13 or 14 in at that time. So it was pretty much like, you go out from there.
He actually did less time than you did.
Yeah. He actually did less.
That's crazy. So anyway, you're in Lorton, you're a young man. What's it like in Lorton? We always hear these stories, Lorton, House of Terror. I interviewed Fly on the channel before. What was it like?
Yeah, I seen Fly on. And it was everything that they said it was, man. It was everything they said it was. I'm talking about I've seen Shanks, I can't even describe on the camera here because it's look like swords. I've seen those in real life. I've seen dudes get hit. Probably Chad, one of the worst I've ever seen in Lorton at my time there. Was a guy literally get set on fire in his bed. Yeah.
What they set him on fire for, if you remember?
Well, back then it was called, checking you in, right? So if a dude or dudes didn't want you in the dorm for whatever reason, they would set your bed on fire, right? Sometimes they wait till you go to the rec. And when you come back from rec, the police waiting on you, say, hey, man, they set your bed on fire. You got to check in. You got to go in. You got to go in the hole, right? They just trying to get you out of the dorm for whatever reason. And so this particular guy, I don't know what the reason was for setting his bed on fire, but he was literally in the bed. So, it's daytime. So, guys would sleep sometimes with the blanket over their head to block out the light. You know what I'm saying? They would sleep with the blanket over their head. You know what I'm talking about, Chad. So he had the blanket over his head, and my bed was actually not too far from him. And so one of the dudes I was cool with, he came over and was like, "Hey, yo, Nut." When I was away, they called me Peanut. So they said, "Hey, Nut, hey, yo, get up, man. They about to do the dude over there, man. Go ahead, get up, bro. I don't want you to get hurt or nothing." So I got up, walked away, walked the distance, and was just looking. And so I don't think it's this way now, but back then, baby oil, Chad, was flammable. I don't think they make it flammable now, but back then, baby oil in the bottle was flammable. And so what they did was walked around his bed, squirted the blanket with baby oil. While he's in it, squirted the whole blanket with baby oil and then set it on fire.
Was he screaming?
The funny thing, Chad, is I was amazed at how long it took him to jump from up under the blanket. Because as I'm watching it, man, the blanket is literally on fire. Like it's blazing. And it was almost like he didn't realize.
He didn't even realize. He thought he just turned the heat up.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I guess he did, because it took a minute, and then he comes, obviously shoots out the blanket. What's going on? What's going on? And so then, of course, he went up front and said, hey, man, I need to go to the hole. I need to check in.
You talked about the swords and things that they had over there. People getting stabbed left and right back then.
Left and right, man. You probably had somebody going out of there, at least one person, man. It almost seems like every day, at least one every day was going out there stabbed up.
Keep a knife on you over there?
No, I never kept a knife on me. I had one situation where I had to put that on me. But other than that, man, I wasn't involved in, although I had never been to prison, Chad, at that time. I had an uncle who was always locked up, and we would go see him. And so being in the environment, I had been in the environment, and I knew, talking to him, how to conduct myself, right? He would always, when we go see him, he would always say, we asked him how he doing. He would always say, I'm doing the time. I don't let the time do me. And I never knew what that meant. until then. So I went to prison. So never had a reason to do that other than that one situation that I was just speaking of.
The one situation you were speaking of, what happened?
We were actually and I talk about this a little bit in the book. We were actually on the basketball court, and everybody was out there. It's summertime. Everybody's out there, and we're playing basketball. And a guy I know, we were pretty cool. We weren't tight, but we were pretty cool. Him and I were playing on the same team. And back then, man, I ain't patting myself on the back, but back then I was a beast in basketball, man, right? I was, 20, 21, I was nice with the basketball. So we're out in the rec yard. And the guy who I'm talking about was checking another guy who was killing him. I mean, literally killing him every point he was getting on him. So I finally said, hey, look, I nudged him. Hey, check my man. Let me get your man. Let me shut him down because he's scoring on you, right? And at this time, we're playing, I believe, for some packs of cigarettes. That was money back then. And so I nudged him like, hey, man, go check him. Let me check your man. And he got offended for some reason, man. It wasn't like, you were stopping the dude from scoring. Go check my man. And so he got offended, man. And when I nudged him, he kind of pushed my hand away. And so then I said, man, just go check him. Just stay on him, man. And he's like, nah, I'm staying on my man. So now his pride is in the way. Everybody's out there, man. The whole rec yard is full. So his pride got in the way. He said some things, and then it turned to, I think he said something to me, man. And we ended up pushing each other, and it just went from there, man. First, that was actually the first fight I had in prison. That situation right there.
Did you win or lose?
Oh no, man, I won. And that's how the situation got started. I whipped him pretty bad out in the rec yard. Everybody's seen it. So he ends up back then in Lorton, you had a dorm called the Animal House, man. Everybody know if you've been to Lorton back then, you know what the Animal House was. Dudes in that dorm probably had more time than anybody on the compound. So he had went and got one of his boys from down there, told his boys that he got jumped because he was knotted up, face was knotted up. Told one of his boys he got jumped. And so what they did, they went and got their joints, and they were waiting for me on the walk. They were going, all three of them was going to hit me up when I was coming back from the cafeteria. They were going to hit me up. So you talked about this guy. I'm gonna throw his name out there. A guy named Yank. You talked about him in one of your podcasts because he lost his life in the penitentiary in 2018. I think he was down in Hazleton. You remember that episode you did?
I don't remember.
Yeah, his name was Ian Thorne, but we called him Yank. Good dude. But anyway, he was killed in 2018 in Hazleton Penitentiary. He got stabbed.
So what happened? He was out there that day?
He was the one who stopped me on my way to the walk, right? And I knew him from being in Tennessee. We had both been in Tennessee. So he stopped me on my way to my dormitory because I'm going back. I'm fine. I'm going back, right? We had supposedly squashed it when we left the rec yard. Everybody said it's over with. Y'all fought like men. It's over with. I said it's over with. I'm done, right? In my mind, I'm saying he can't stay in the dorm with me though. Like something we got to have. But the only thing that stopped the fight was the police coming out in the rec yard saying child time. So everybody kind of broke up, right? So long story short, they come, they're on the walk, they're waiting for me to come down the walk, right? Ian catches me before I get to my dormitory and say, hey, was you fighting such and such? I said, yeah. He said, man, you see the three dudes down there waiting at your dormitory with him? He was one of the guys. The dude I whipped was one of the guys. He had went and got two other guys. I said, yeah, I see him. He said, all of them got jumps, man. They waiting on you. I said, for real? He said, yeah. I think he told them that he got jumped. So he said, man, I ain't gonna let you walk down there by yourself. You got a joint? I said, nah, I ain't got no joint. I said, hold on though. we had happened to stop right in front of the dormitory. We was 2 dormitories from my dormitory. The dormitory we had stopped at, my boy Chuck stayed in that dormitory. So I stepped in the dormitory, went and got Chuck, woke him up, and told him what was going on. And that's how I initially got my shank. Before that, I had never carried one. And so once I told Chuck what happened, he gave me a shank, long joint. I slid it down in my pants, and all 3 of us walked up there. And of course, Chuck had one too. At this time, Chuck was about 6'4", 270. So we walked down there, and we pretty much confronted him. Actually, Ian was the first one who said something like, "Yo, I know what y'all trying to do to my man. I ain't gonna let that happen. However y'all want to get out, we can get out." But they fought like men. My man Nut beat him straight up, 1-on-1. Wasn't nobody jumped or none of that. And so however y'all want to do it, y'all can do it. And they ended up, the main guy who he went and got, he ended up saying, "Man, you came and got me. You said you got jumped, man." And they saying he whooped you straight up. He's like, "Man, don't ever come get me, man, for no BS." You know what I mean? You got whooped like a man. You got to take that ass whoop. And he left him, man, left him standing there. And they both walked back to the dorm and left him standing there. And then I told him, "Man, for real, you was going to do that? Okay, I'm going to see you. I'm going to see you." And we walked away, right? Police started to congregate on the walk at that time. We walked away. Eventually, he went to the child hall and got locked up. The lieutenant seen his face, and was like, "Man, step to the side." Called him to the side, and they locked him up, man. I don't know if you know, like back then, Chad, if you got caught with any type of bruises on you, anything, yeah, you was going to the hole, and they was coming to search your dorm and try to find out who it was you was fighting, because they don't want it to expand.
They still do it that way. They come around. Let me see your hands. Take off your shirt.
Yeah,
They still
take
do it.
your shirt off. Let me see your hands. If you got a scratch on you, man, that what happened 2 days ago, you go into the hole.
So you end up whooping the dude over some of the most. Look, I just seen a lot of fights over basketball. Probably the most incidents that I've seen in prison were either over cards or basketball. So you think the shit's dead. You're walking up there. These 3 dudes are pretty much plotting on you. What are you thinking in your mind? Like, damn, man, now I'm jammed up over some bullshit. What are you thinking?
Well, when Yank came and told me that, man, my first thought was, yeah, I need a knife, because I don't know how this is gonna end. And so, like I said, we stepped in the dorm and got that. And once I heard that he got locked up, he went to the hole because they seen his face. I gave that back to Chuck. I said, "Man, I don't need." Chuck said, "Man, go ahead and hold on to it." I'm like, "No, I don't need it, man. I'm good." I just never. I wanted, when I first got sentenced, Chad, and went to Tennessee in 1989. That was the first time when they shipped me from Lorton. I went to Tennessee, a little small town in Tennessee, man. It was 12 of us. We were the only blacks to ever be in that town. Period. They had never been around black people at all. Yeah, man.
They ship you out. You're a DC prisoner. They ship you out of Lorton. They send you to Tennessee. What's that jail like?
Man, it was a jail. That's exactly what it was. A straight jail, man. It only held about 200 of us, but it was a place where DC contracted us out to, right? So DC go in, they say, "Hey, can you guys house 150 guys for us? We're going to pay you $200,000 a month to hold these guys." And that's how that works. And of course, that little town is called Sneedville, Tennessee, Hancock County. So you can imagine my face when they told me where I was going. I thought I was going to another part of Lorton. I actually left from Lorton, Occoquan, and I thought I was going on the hill, what is called the Hill, which is another penitentiary on the site of Lorton. And so everybody was giving me notes and, "Man, get us to such and such when you get on the Hill. Get us to such." I got over to R&D, and the police said, "Man, you want to take these notes and letters with you?" I said, "Yeah, because I got to give them to some dudes on the Hill." He said, "Man, you ain't going on the Hill." I said, "Huh?" He said, "You ain't going on the Hill." I said, "Where I'm going?" He looked at the paper. He said, "You going to Hancock County, Sneedville, Tennessee."
How long were you down there for?
I did 3.5 years in Tennessee.
County jail, not even a prison, in a county jail.
County jail. That's exactly what it was.
How rough was that, man, to live like that?
Actually, it turned out to be pretty sweet, Chad, to be honest with you. We had our own. We could wear our own clothes. We could, your peoples could send you cash in the mail. Yeah. So my mother would send me money. She would just simply wrap it up in paper, right, and put it in an envelope. And so when they come around, they open your mail right in front of you at the door. They open the mail right in front of you. So mom might send me $100. They're gonna give you the $100 right there in your hand.
Then you end up leaving Tennessee. Where do you go after Tennessee?
I went back to Lorton. So when I was in Tennessee, right, you were only supposed to be there 1 year, and then they had to bring you back to Lorton to your family. You only was supposed to be there 1 year. I ended up there 3.5 years only because each year that it was time for me to go back to Lorton, I signed a waiver to stay.
That's the only reason. You'd rather be. I mean, violence over there or not really?
No, not really, man. You had something jump off every now and then, but it was so sweet that nobody wanted to mess up what was going on. You know what I'm saying? At that time, we had what was called trustees. So I was a trustee. They trusted me, outside of the actual, sales. So I was free to walk around, man. We would wash cars and we would drive them from the front of the jail around to the back where we would wash and wax them, and we got paid for that.
So you do end up leaving. Why do you end up leaving? No more waivers, or they're just done with the contract?
No more waivers, man. I was there longer than any other inmate, right? And everybody, every time a bus would come up, they would say, "Oh man, they killing down in Lorton, man. They doing this, they doing that, they out of control." So I would get the word what was going on in Lorton. Man, honestly, Chad, I didn't want no parts of that, man. When I got to Tennessee, I got there with an older guy. So I had only been in about a year at that time. And I got sent up there with an older guy who sat me down and was explaining to me. He said, "Man, you got a life sentence, bro. All that playing basketball and doing all that, man, what is it gonna get you? You know what I'm saying? Man, get your mind right so that if you ever get out of here, right, you'll understand how to stay out. Playing basketball and doing all this other stuff around here ain't gonna get you nothing." And so that's where my head was at.
Focus was, man, I am going to get out of here someday and I'm going to live a good life. Right.
And so I had dropped out of school in the 12th grade, Chad. Tennessee is where I actually got my GED, right? And if there's any kids listening, that's the part I want to say, man. Education kind of changed my life. It changed my focus in Tennessee because they allowed us to get our GED. And from there, like, I think 12 of us took the GED test. And of the 12, I was the only one that passed. And so that kind of gave me confidence, like, man, I can do it. I can get my education together. At least, man, if I ever get out of here, I know, that I got my education.
Were there times when you thought, man, I'm never getting out of here?
There was, Chad. There was times when I said, man, I don't want to say I felt like giving up, but I felt like giving up. You know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean. I've been there.
Exactly. You know what I mean, man? Especially when stuff is going on, like you on lockdown. And so, you on lockdown, it's been 2 weeks, man, and you ain't been able to get on the phone. You get out your cell. Sometimes you don't even get out your cell. They just slide it through the slot, or those times when you're in the hole, Chad, you know what I mean? And you're like, man, what does my life come to? In those times, it was hard, man.
You leave Tennessee and you go to Lorton. Are you kind of sad? Like, damn, I'm leaving this place, man. I've been here so long.
I was. I probably almost cried real tears, Chad, only because the staff there were crying when I left, man. Now, mind you, again, these are people who had never been around Black people. Yeah, and so one of them told me, actually, one of the staff members, I worked with her in the kitchen for 3 years. She said to me, "Rodney, before you guys got here, we were always told that Black people were heathens and murderers and killers and stay away from them." And that's how they treated us when we first got there. But by the time I left, because I was there as long as I was, man, I had made so many friends, and most of them on that day that I was getting shackled up to go back to Lorton, most of them were standing there crying.
Let me tell you this, right? This is the one thing that people don't understand, man. That, there are good people in the world. Not everybody's a a piece of shit. You know what I mean? And
Right.
like when I was in Raybrook, man, I felt like I was there for 5 years. I was finally close to home. And when I left there, as crazy as this sounds, I was sad, man. I was sad that I was leaving. I was here.
That's how I felt in Tennessee, man. That's how I felt. I had made some cool friends, man. White friends, as um, and they had come to not just love me but respect me. Regardless of what I was there for.
What's the cultural shock like when you go back to Lorton from coming from there?
So on the bus there, it's probably an 8-hour ride in the mountains. If you look up Sneeville, you'll see it's in the mountains, man. Like you're literally coming around mountains and you're on the bus shackled up, and all you can think about, man, if this bus go off the side of this cliff, how am I gonna get out? Like that's where it is, man. It's literally in the mountains. But going back on the ride back, man, I was thinking, man, I'm going back to this den full of lions, right? So I got to change my mindset, man. That's what it is. I got to change my mindset.
When you're around lions, you got to become a lion, right?
You got to become a lion. You know what I mean?
And
do
eventually,
as the Romans do when in Rome.
Eventually, you end up leaving. You leave Lorton again. Where do you go after you leave Lorton?
So in 1999, that started the closure of Lorton. 1999 started the closure of Lorton, is when they physically started sending guys out, right? And so from there in 1999, I got sent to Ohio. Most guys that were coming from Lorton went to Ohio.
You go to Ohio State Prison. What's that like?
Oh man, it was the worst, man. No, I take that back. It wasn't the worst. The only thing that was really, really bad about Ohio that I didn't like was the weather. The weather was crazy, man. And I heard somebody from Ohio say, "Oh, if you don't like the weather, wait till tomorrow. You get something like that."
And your mind, what's your mind like though? I mean, are you concentrating on, your, after you get your GED, further education? Like, when I get out of here, I got a plan. I mean, what was your plan? What was Rodney's plan?
Well, my plan was to obtain every certification and anything educational that I can get. That was my plan. So eventually I ended up getting my college degree while I was in business.
That's what's up. And then I know you end up going to the parole board, right? You got a 15 to life. You go to your first parole board. What happens?
2-year hit.
What that feel like for you, man?
They say, well, it was, like I said, that first fight I had didn't go on my jacket, but I did have another fight that had went in my jacket. So that one fight was in there when I went to see the parole board. And so they kind of used that to say, oh, you still not learning your lesson. I mean, man, come on. I've been in 8 years. I mean, one fight, whatever it was by the time I seen them, I think it was 9, maybe 10 years I had been in before I first seen them, and they gave me the 2-year hit. But they kind of used that. Oh, we want you to do some more programming, that whole thing that they go through.
How much time do you do straight before you see the street again?
Including the halfway house, because how they let you go 6 months prior to the halfway house. So if you include the halfway house, it was 17 years.
So you did 17 years, man. Went to prison at 19, came home at what? 36, 37?
30. Yeah, I was about that. 35, I believe. Something like that.
What do you do when you get out? You finally get out, man. Like, damn, I made it, man. I did make it out of here. What's it like?
So we went to like I said, we got sent to the halfway house 6 months prior, and a lot of dudes would turn that down. I've seen a lot of dudes turn the halfway house down, thinking it was a setup. But in my mind, the way I was thinking, Chad, it was like, man, this is an opportunity for freedom. Like I'm messing up ain't even in the plan for me. So yes, I want to go my 6 months prior. I want to go, and so they put us on a bus. They gave us $50, put us on a bus to go to go home. Although I had the bus ticket, I had my mother actually meet me, so I wouldn't have to get on the bus. My mom actually met me and took me to the halfway house, right? And so, man, just that ride alone, man, I always liken it to Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption. When he got out, that's what it seemed like, man. Like everything looked different. Everything, the flowers looked different, the birds looked different. I mean, it just, it was an amazing feeling.
You came home with a plan, man. Tell the people how long you've been out.
Last month, what is this, May? April made 20 years.
Got out of jail, never went back.
Never went back, man. Never was my plan to go back.
That's what's up, man. I mean, that's a success story for real, man. To see you, do all that time, get out and get your life together. What are you doing now in your life?
So I carved out a pretty good niche with retail management when I first came home. And so I never stopped that, man. That has always been so for 20 years, that's what I've been doing outside of, now I've been approved to go into prisons, detention centers, all that, man, just trying to give back in that way outside of my real job. Try to give back in that way and go in and give those guys hope that, you can make it even with a life sentence, man. Sometimes God is on your side. You can make it. You can make it out, but you got to be prepared. Ain't no sense in getting out if you not prepared and you going right back in, and that's the message I give them when I go in there, So I spoke to some kids not too long ago at an alternative school, man. And I mean, a lot of these kids out here right now, Chad, they just lost, man. They lost, and so that's what I try to do.
Where was the school at, in D.C. or in Virginia?
The school I spoke at? No, it's here in Charlotte where I reside now. It's called Turning Point. And it's an alternative school. When kids get kicked out of regular school, they got to go to this school in order to get back into school. And so, went and spoke there as a keynote speaker and just trying to give those guys my life and, how I turned my life around and just try to direct them in a different angle, man, because sometimes you don't get a second chance, Chad. And that's the point I try to get through to them. Sometimes you just don't get a second chance. I was just reading a story the other day where 4 kids, I think none of them were 17, 2 16-year-olds and I think 2 14-year-olds were in a stolen car. I believe this happened in Florida just the other week, last week. 4 kids in a stolen car. Police get behind them. They run, right? They don't pull over, they run. One of the kids is actually a standout football star at one of the high schools. All 4 in the vehicle, they run. They're probably running, I believe the article said they were going about 110. So the police called the chase off because they were going so fast. Ultimately, they ended up running into a pole, man. Split the car in half, killed all 4 of them. So that's the part I talk about where sometimes you don't get a second chance, man. One false move, I liken it to chess. One bad move can eradicate your whole existence, and that's how we are in life, man. One bad move, sometimes that's it. You don't get another chance.
Just had a guy down there getting a shootout with a bunch of cops in Charlotte, right?
Yes, sir. It actually happened. That actually happened 7 minutes from my house.
And that dude had a bunch of chances, bro, and got back out on the street.
A bunch of chances, Chad.
It's crazy. What's your book? I know you talk about your book. Tell the people what your book is.
So my book, so my book is a nonfiction autobiography about my life. Just walking you through my life, man, from a kid on up to my incarceration period. It's called Escape from Darkness, Escape with an X. And you can go on Amazon and just type in Escape from Darkness with the X and it'll pop right up.
I'll put your book in the link and tell people to go check out that book. You sent it to me. Me and you talked about this interview about 1.5 years ago, right? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, Chad. We were back and forth, man. I think initially you were trying to get with me and I was busy, and then I tried to call you and you were busy. And then when we finally did talk for the first time, you called me. I said, "Hey, Chad, are we ready?" And you said you FaceTimed me. We were on FaceTime. and you had your twin boys. You had one in this arm, he was asleep, and the other one was in this arm, he was trying to go to sleep. And you said, Rodney, I'm gonna call you back. I'm gonna call you. And so that there, man, just that image right there is what I remember, you know, initially talking to you, man. I said, hey, this is a stand-up guy. I don't do, you know, a lot of interviews, but yeah, I was impressed with that, man.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, man. I'm gonna make sure I put your book in there. You know, before we get ready to go, I know you talk about, you know, talking to kids and everything. What message do you have, you know, today for a kid that, you know, his friends like, yo, look, man, it might be an issue, man. Make sure you bring that thing with you. We're about to. Well, what's Rodney's message to that young kid, man?
So my message would be, always think before you move. That's the message I leave, you know, I leave with, and I use that. That's a moniker that was given to me when I first got into prison and started learning the game of chess, right? And the older gentleman who I was learning it from would always say, make your next move your best move, you know. And so and you gotta, that's the same game of chess. You gotta play that same game in life, right? They're synonymous to each other, man. So just think before you move, because you'll get those friends, so-called friends, who say, hey man, let's spin the block, you know, let's spin the block and do this and do that. But guess what? When it all come down to it, that same one that's telling you let's spin the block will be the same one, you know, pointing the finger at you off the stand. You know?
Don't get no realer than that. You know, like you said, man, let your next move be your best move. I heard that plenty of times. And sometimes that goes in one ear and out the other, but man, hopefully people pay heed to it, man. I'm gonna get ready to go, but I'm gonna tell people to check out your book. We'll put the links in there. Check this brother's book out. Really good, brother. Just, you know, they can listen to you talk, man, and tell that you're an educated dude. You are an example. You know, you became the change that you seek to see in other people, man. And I appreciate you and the work that you're doing, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate you.
Tell people if you like what we're doing, you know what it is. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. With respect, until tomorrow, we're out.